All right, I'm kind of curious about. Well, I'm very curious about this video here. It's another Manosphere video, guys. I know that you guys love that so much. This Manosphere stuff is so cool. But I'm curious. It's from somebody named Leja Miller. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. But it is the Manosphere to alt-right pipeline. We should all be talking about this. And the thumbnail says something like,
"Hi there, my name."
Shush. The thumbnail. Oh my god. The thumbnail says, "Are men okay?" I wonder, is there a manosphere to the alt-right pipeline? Maybe. I mean, maybe. There might actually be. Some of the people get like super weirdly conservative sometimes. So, well, I guess the best way to solve that problem is to talk to young men and say, hey, I'm here for you, fella. I'm here for you. Okay, there's a trigger warning at the beginning. So be careful about that, guys. Okay?
Nobody respects women more than I do.
Now, I have great respect for women.
Loud.
My daughter Ivanka always says,
Okay,
Daddy,
I might turn myself down.
Nobody respects women more than you, Daddy.
There was this about Jessica
Whoa.
Leeds, who accused him of sexual assault.
Jesus.
I'm gonna go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
Jesus Christ.
The fact
Oh my
is,
God.
when you give women rights, they destroy absolutely everything around them,
True.
no matter what other variable is involved. Even if you become the ultimate alpha male, some stupid bitch will still ruin your life.
True,
The vagina is
true.
the perfect representation of the nature of females.
True.
An empty vessel,
Just kidding.
a hole,
Just
a
joking.
void with no identity of its own.
The funniest is that I'll go
Wow, you're really speaking facts, girl. Just kidding.
backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, you know, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. You know, I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? You know, they're standing there with no clothes.
That's weird. Pageants are so bizarre, bro. I don't even know why it's so normalized to do pageants. I think it's so creepy. Like, especially with kids doing pageants. It's just like, what's happening here, you know?
I'm in a state of exuberance that we have a president who rates women on a 1 to 10 scale in the same way that we do, and evaluates women by their appearance and feminine attitude. We may have to institute a new feature called Would Trump Bang to signify the
What the
importance of
hell?
feminine beauty ideals.
Incredible.
Trump embodies red pill thinking into every fiber of his being. It's important that we support him.
Trump
Trump
is
might
based?
be one of our last hopes to overthrow the current system and banish the liar forever. More importantly, he's the embodiment of everything masculine. Trump becoming president in the United States means the West will eventually reflect him. We are taking
Damn.
our manhood back. No
Get it
more
back,
slaves. Freedom for all. Since the dawn of the internet, it has been a place for people from all fringes of society to come together and find community in their shared beliefs. When those shared beliefs are violent and create a tribal-like focus on identity and power, those online communities grow like wildfire.
Just like leftist communities. I agree with you. Obviously, like, alt-right stuff is worse, but bro, it happens everywhere. There's some obnoxious people on the left too. Obviously, they're not as bad as people on the right, generally speaking. I mean, they have a little bit more social power to cancel people on Twitter and whatnot. But the ideas are not nearly as toxic usually. But still, I mean, people get really aggressive on the internet in general.
And eventually escape the confines of the digital world and create real consequences that can end in violence, death, and even insurrection. A lot of energy has been spent focusing on the religious radicalization of kids on the internet and the danger they pose to national security. But not nearly enough attention has been paid to the radicalization of white men on the internet and the
What?
danger that poses not only to
Well, first of all, Andrew Tate's black. Second of all, I feel like you shouldn't just make it white men. Like, I'm not trying to be rude, but the manosphere is, there's a lot. There's white people, there's black people, there's people all over the place. I would argue that it's disproportionately black. I'm not saying anything negative about black people. There's nothing inherent about making you gravitate towards manosphere. But, you know, Andrew Tate is black. He's half black, which, you know, in our one-drop rule society, you know, means he's basically all black. Fresh and Fit are probably like the second most prolific people in that space. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. Why make it just white guys? Why did you need to make it like white pejorative in this video? You could have just said it. Just men in general are gravitating towards it. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you on about?
girls and women, but to democracy writ large. Because once a person becomes radicalized around one set of beliefs, such as that women are the enemy and men are the real victims of feminism, it becomes a lot easier to jump to the belief that immigrants and women are the enemy and white men are the real victims of feminism, globalism.
Dude, this video misses the fucking mark so hard. just with the whole white men focus, it's just like you just don't know Manosphere. You were so desperate to plug fucking Manosphere next to white people. It's really weird. It's just so weird. Have you ever like consumed Manosphere content? Well, okay.
And the cultural Marxism that has taken hold of every corner of life in the United States. It's a slippery slope that leads to killing sprees, violence, and wholesale in the United States. It's a slippery slope that leads to killing sprees.
Okay.
Violence.
Sure.
And wholesale insurrection. This is the Manosphere to alt-right pipeline we should all be talking about. Roll the intro.
Don't doubt that there's an alt-right pipeline gravitation with this kind of stuff. I mean, you look at people like Sneeko who are associating with people like Nick Fuentes. Absolutely. But there's a lot. It's young men in general are at risk when it comes to this gravitation. It's so ridiculous to say it's just fucking white men. It's just so dumb. It's just so annoying. Okay. I think it's just so afraid to be like actually factually correct. It's like I can't criticize anybody that's not white. Fuck, I'm gonna cry. You know.
As a person who exists publicly, especially as a woman who shares her opinions online, I'm hyper aware of safety and security, and it's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. This is due in part to data brokers, which are corporations that collect your personal information from a variety of sources like government, public records, and social media, and then aggregate that information and sell it to other companies. That's where those scammy looking websites that allow you to search for people or do background checks on people, that's where they get all that information. Legally, there are very few online privacy laws in the United States, so the data you might consider to be private may not be private at all. Shit. That information can then be used to steal your identity or dox you, or someone posts your contact information online to encourage people to harass you. Not only that, but they also collect the information for your family members, often posting it all together, so it's so much easier to connect.
All right, this is obviously a plug for something. Okay, yeah.
Privacy experts take it from there.
There you go. It's fucking Pingle World VPN. There it is. It's joined. It's whatever this is in her fucking thing. Delete me. Yeah, okay, cool. Go look it up.
Multiple different men's groups congregate. The Manosphere is the name for the place online where multiple different men's groups congregate, generally in forums and websites like Reddit, 4chan, and 8chan. These groups are many, disparate, and disorganized. Multiple different men's groups congregate, generally in forums and websites like Reddit, 4chan, and 8chan. These groups are many, disparate, and disorganized, but they include men's rights activists, incels, and pickup artists. We'll get into the nitty-gritty differences between each, but suffice it to say, they're communities where men are able to gather, voice their concerns and opinions, get advice, and connect with other like-minded people.
I wonder if she's going to stay away from criticizing, like, the fresh and fits of the internet. Okay.
While many sources point to the internet as increasing the feelings of loneliness and isolation the world over, it's also allowed for isolated communities and individuals to gain a sense of belonging, friendship, and camaraderie when they've struggled to find it in the real world. And one of the most isolated groups of people in the world are men. Especially men who feel that, for whatever reason, they don't fit in with regular people, or who struggle with friendships and feelings of isolation. And a lot of men...
So far, we've only seen white and Asian people, so I guess Asian people are white now, too.
...struggle with isolation. A 2021 survey found that only 21% of men said they had received emotional support from a friend within the last week, compared to 41% of women. And just 25% of men said they had said, "I love you" to a friend recently, as opposed to 49% of women. But
that is kind of gay. I'm going to tell you that I love my friend. What am I supposed to do? Kiss him on the lips after? I would do it. I would do it, though. I would kiss my best. I would kiss him on the lips. I don't care. It's not really gay to kiss your homie on the lips. I don't personally think. I don't think that's kind of cool. I would be down for it. Maybe.
Between 1995 and 2021, the number of men reporting that they had no close friends jumped from
crazy.
3 to 15%.
Jesus,
no close friends.
That's fucking
and the number
crazy.
of men saying they had at least 6 close friends
Hey, we saw a black
went
guy
from
finally.
55% to 27%.
Okay.
And that isolation has real consequences. Social isolation can significantly increase your risk of premature death from all causes,
Yeah.
a risk that could be just as high as smoking and physical inactivity. It's also been associated with a
Well, wouldn't it be associated with that because you're using other things to subsidize your happiness, right? Wouldn't that be the reason why? Not just the loneliness? I don't know.
50% increased risk of dementia. And along with that loneliness
Damn.
comes the risk of self-harm. Between 2000 and 2020, 800,000 people died by suicide.
The fuck is cowboy mentality? What the hell? What is a cowboy? Many boys are raised with so-called cowboy mentality, meaning a mindset of I can do it myself, I don't need others. Damn, I didn't know that. But that's fucking cool. I kind of want to have cowboy mentality. If that means I gotta, that's kind of cool.
And made up about 80% of them.
Damn.
And the pandemic only made it worse. In
Cowboys.
2022, the CDC recorded nearly 50,000 such deaths, the highest number ever recorded. There
Sounds
are
so-
many factors that may explain the reason for this isolation.
What was it, though?
Highest
35% surge in calls to mental health lines. Okay.
number ever recorded. There are many factors.
Wait, hold on. What did you
percent
say?
of them. And the pandemic only made it worse. In 2022, the CDC recorded nearly 50,000 such deaths, the highest number ever recorded.
Well, why didn't you show the credit? Why didn't you show the whatever? What is it called? The source for that? Why did you show the source for just an increase in mental health calls? Whatever. I don't know.
There are many factors that may
I'm not saying that it's an increase, but I don't think mental health calls are directly equal to that.
explain the reason for this isolation. Again, the pandemic didn't help, but male isolation has been a trend for decades. Looking at that isolation through a feminist lens, one piece of the puzzle is that those feelings of isolation stem from the patriarchy, which defines masculinity in stark opposition to femininity, and requires that in order to be a real man, men must be strong, emotionally controlled, confident. They must be able to.
Well, you need to be emotionally controlled. That is, it's like a weird. You're almost like glazing the male perspective. That it's not emotional control. It's no showing of any emotion, even in a healthy capacity.
Provide for their families. They must be traditionally handsome and muscular. They must show no sign of weakness. The absence of any of these traits makes a man vulnerable to attacks on his masculinity. The consequence of this is generations of men who have no clue how to connect with other people because real connection requires vulnerability.
I feel like the way that you demonstrated this was like weird because this is the problem. In general, everybody's going to have a different interaction with words that are being said. So when you say something like you in a disparaging tone, disparaging the idea that men should be emotionally regulated or in control, which is something that you said. Why is that bad? It's not bad. You should be emotionally in control. You should also be more vulnerable. But what emotional control is to different people is going to be different. For a normal person, emotional control is like, hey, especially for men, if you're angry, don't break stuff and try to go through different, methods to reduce your anger. So that's what you should be. For some people, it just means don't express any emotion, and that becomes very problematic. But, I feel like you have to be careful because no man tuned into this video and went, that makes so much sense to me. Like, I'm totally going to change everything. I'm going to be more emotionally available or whatever. I know that's how most content works. It's like you're speaking to people, you're speaking to your own audience. But that, you're better off having like a better relationship with those words or using words that are going to promote people to kind of think critically and maybe change their perspective that don't already agree with you. So like if a young boy was watching this and you just ascribed that, they'd be like, yeah, I want to be all those things. You can and should be all those things. You should be a provider for your family. You should do the best to look nice, You don't have to be like super traditionally handsome, but you should keep yourself put together. But you should explain the interpretation of what those things should mean to you without putting too much of an unrealistic expectation. But like, yeah, you should provide for your family. That doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire, but do your best to go through a solid path of getting a decent career or a decent job. That's not a bad thing for somebody to hear. Be like, oh, you can be a provider for your family, or you should be, you should look nice. You don't have to be traditionally super attractive, but you should like look nice, shower, keep yourself like well kempt, like. cut your hair, keep yourself looking decent, wear decently nice clothes, keep yourself put together from a mental health perspective. That'll have it be a positive on you. Keep yourself emotionally regulated. Don't let your anger get the best of you and explode, but make sure you have people around you, whether it's a spouse or, just a girlfriend or a boyfriend or, they friend, whatever, or a parent or just a regular friend to talk about some of your stuff so that doesn't build up and explode. That's... I don't know. So that's the problem with a lot of this is different people are hearing different things when they hear words, and young men and other people, like young men are hearing one thing. You can say the same word. Young men are hearing one thing. Other people are hearing another thing. So it comes off as so obvious. Your audience is probably like, yeah, I mean all those things. But yeah, a young man doesn't understand that a lot of the times because they're fucking dumb. So
something they're taught never to show. This leads to increased incidences of suicide and violence. But the anonymity of the internet provides an outlet for men who feel they don't fit the mold. They turn to the internet for advice and camaraderie. This can lead men, especially young men who are at their most insecure as they're trying to figure out their identities and all of this, to turn to forums to seek out advice from others for how to better fit this mold.
Sure.
This can start as something as innocuous as seeking out advice for...
And sometimes it can be that some young man goes on the internet and sees a bunch of fucking lefties on TikTok shitting on men, saying that should kill all men, which was a big narrative a couple of years ago, and having a fucking meltdown and making them feel uncomfortable and not able to, feel comfortable in those spaces. I understand where the sentiment comes from to, not like men. I understand women have a lot of women. I would argue that women probably have more negative experiences with men than the opposite. And those negative experiences are probably more intense. But that's also a part of it too, is like lefty type spaces not really providing somewhere comfortable for some kids, some of these young men to exist. When you already say that you're the bad guy and you other somebody, you might not mean to be like super aggressive. When you say like, I hate men, you might just mean like, oh, I'm frustrated by like one guy in my life and that makes me apprehensive. But that's not what you're communicating to other people. Again, the impact of words.
How to talk to girls and maybe what workouts to do to build
balls.
some muscle and improve their fitness.
Wendler 531.
They may find helpful forum posts from men who felt very similarly to them and have managed to change their lifestyle a bit and benefited from it. They feel seen, and they feel a sense of connection that they've been searching for. So they dig deeper into the forum. And sprinkled in...
Well, I feel like if they get the result that they need, they're probably not going to continue to push further.
With the advice for high-intensity workouts and protein supplements, they see posts that suggest perhaps part of the problem isn't just that they need to change themselves, but actually that women are causing a lot of this pain and isolation.
Maybe.
Through their rejection of them. Okay. So maybe women are the problem.
I don't know, man. I used to browse the misc forums and shit. I feel like you're putting a little too much onto... It just seems like you're shitting on all of it. There's most of the misc forums that I would browse on, it was like a little bit of trolling and we're just fucking around. I feel like getting into that woman hatred takes a little bit more than just, hey, I'm going to go work out. And then I fall into like the alt-right pipeline. I'd argue if they fell into... the people that were talking about good fitness advice and they took that and they made a change for the better, they're probably not going to be so angry and resentful. But okay.
And this is a tempting explanation, especially to explain the anecdotal experiences of lonely, especially young men. Hey, that girl Sarah that I had a crush on in the 8th grade told me I was too short and everyone laughed at me. It's
crazy.
Her fault that I feel this way. And I see a few similar anecdotes on this forum, so it must be women generally who are the enemy. It can make a person feel seen and like maybe they're not the complete piece of shit they thought they were. And maybe that in fact they're fine and it's other people
Sophia and
who are the
Alexandra
problem.
became a member.
Thank you so much. It's just so weird.
And this is where the essential disconnect happens. Instead of having someone come in and tell them the other people who are the problem is society writ large and the predominance of the patriarchy.
Why would that be the problem if fucking Sarah said that you were too short? Like, I understand what you're saying. If you get really deep into it, the patriarchy says that if you're short, you're bad. But that's something that was also enforced by women too. But more than that, I think more of it's like, hey, it's so body positivity is probably a better, like, hey, you're short, like that's okay. I don't think you need to try to have a fucking systemic conversation with somebody if they were made fun of. You could. You could. It's just not going to be helpful if somebody makes fun of fucking Timmy for being too short. Oh, well, you know that the patriarchy actually. that's not going to be effective, especially since a lot of times when people talk about patriarchy, what they're trying to do is blanket and make fun of men. But either way, you could just be like, hey, man, like, that's okay. You could level with somebody one-to-one in a more personal, intimate way instead of trying to have a systemic conversation. Systemic conversations rarely help people because it's just not going to generally be productive for most people's needs. You know, it needs to be a little bit different than a fucking whole systemic thing. Be a little more personal, not so fucking deep, because most people don't respond super well to like the annoying, like really deep bullshit. So,
which requires strict adherence to gender roles at the risk of social isolation and harms both women and men. Instead, someone is there telling them, no, you aren't the problem, and the other people who are the problem are women. You are, in fact, a victim of women, and it's not women who are reinforcing the patriarchy that are the problem. It's actually women who are feminists. They've been given too much power. In fact, things were better in the 50s when they had less power. Men back then definitely didn't feel isolated or bad about themselves because they took their rightful place as the patriarch of the family. Women didn't fight their places in society, and everything was right with the world. It's feminism to blame for all of this and the women who adhere to it. And now you have a young man who's gone from casually consuming tips about protein powder and how to talk to girls to a young man who believes he's the victim of a vast network of tyrannical women whose empowerment is keeping men from taking their true place in society. And the deeper this young man gets, the more he personally and emotionally identifies with this online community because it's the first time.
I feel like the real pipeline is you listen to like really edgy shit on the internet and then you just kind of, I don't know, man. This is like...
he's found an explanation for his pain that both makes sense and also takes his personal responsibility out of the equation. I'm not the problem. I'm the hapless.
Sure, I agree with that. It does perpetuate a victim complex in men. I think it's shitty. I think in general, a lot of different social narratives can push a victim complex, whether it's advocacy for, people of color or women or LGBTQ people. I'm not saying that there aren't issues associated with these groups, because there obviously are, more so than with men, though I think that men also have their own problems. But generally speaking, it goes from advocacy to the promotion of a victim complex. And you could definitely identify that the second that they start shitting on other people. Once you start pointing your finger and saying those people are the problem, usually that's when it's become a victim complex, right? It's for anybody, right? There's a difference between acknowledging the particular issue that you're having versus taking that and creating a victim narrative out of it and making an excuse for everything in your life out of that, right? Like if you're black and you understand that black people generally have more oppression associated with them, absolutely true. But if you lean into that too much, all of a sudden every single problem in your fucking life, you're going to go, oh my God, it's because I'm black. Oh my God, it's because I'm black. It's like, no, it's not. You know, not everything is going to be chalked up to this one thing, so...
was victim. And then what the man does about this feeling depends on which flavor of manosphere our hypothetical young man has found first or most identifies with. There's the men's rights activists, or MRAs, who have been active since long before the invention of the internet and tend to focus on how society is rigged against men, especially family law courts, where fathers' rights are being infringed, and employment law, where women are...
I mean, again, most of the time men don't want to be around their kids as much as women do, and so it's just kind of the unfortunate reality. And for the most part, women are the ones that are emotionally taking care of their kids more, so it kind of makes sense for the women to generally get their kid more. If you're a man, you can still get visitation on your kid, obviously. So, and I think it's like 80% of the men who fight for custody or end up winning. So,
are getting ahead by playing the woman card.
We are the male men. We are a men's rights activist group, and we are fed up.
I'm sorry, what's happening now?
Then there's the more Andrew Tate-flavored pickup artists, or PUAs, who have also been around longer than the internet, who teach young men how to talk to girls, not from a place of genuine interest or respect, but from a place of psychological manipulation. They see this as a sexual war, which men have to win by any means necessary, including coercion.
Yeah, except they're also like afraid of eating pussy, so they're fucking weird.
Gaslighting, and even rape, with leaders in the community advocating for the legalization of date rape and teaching it as a skill in their books, seminars, and many online forum posts. Similarly, incels, short for involuntary celibate, blame their forced celibacy on women who they see as trying to control them by holding out on sex, something that these men across the board believe should be available to them at all times.
There's something interesting about that, because I think that's something that's worth engaging when you're like, women are just withholding sex. Like, yeah, of course they are, because men want more sex and women want to be in relationships more. Of course women are going to withhold sex. That's their bartering chip. It's not a bad thing to be sexually withholding. It just depends on how you do it. If you go like, and the normal way is like, oh, I went on a date with a girl and she wouldn't fuck me on the first date. Like, no shit, asshole, because she wants you to actually give her energy and effort into it, you know, and wants to usually get what, you know, you want sex, but also men do want relationships as well. And she wants to make sure you're the kind of guy that wants a relationship. It's like, yeah, it's not bad to be sexually withholding, right? It's funny because then these men will be like, oh, women are just sexually withholding. And then they'll be like, only virgins are worth something. It's like, okay, so which one is it? Those are two conflicting ideas. It's not that big of a deal. You know, a worse thing would be like if you're married to somebody and the woman like refuses to have sex with you just to spite you. That's a negative sexual withholding. So.
And feminism is to blame for women not being as sexually available to them as they were, say, back in the 1950s when everything was perfect. While spending their days obsessing over women, how to get them, how to have sex with them, how to hurt them, how to control them, how they're ruining their lives, these men also openly despise women, posting some of the most vile, dehumanizing, violent tirades against women that can be found on the internet. These communities are many and varied and not neatly organized, but they generally tend to have common through lines of violent attitudes towards women, who they believe are undeserving of respect, as well as generalized feelings of victimhood. They are victims of a system that has been rigged against them in favor of feminism by tyrannical women who want to see them suffer, and
the Toronto van attack suspect was obsessed with rejection from women. He is not alone.
Women generally must be punished for it. A recent article from The Atlantic explains further. Anti-feminism offers to address a genuine sense of grievance. Sites such as 4chan, another anonymous message board, have developed a whole language to talk about the hurt young men feel. Stacy's, conventionally attractive, sexually available white women, date Chads, jocks, ignoring nice guys who get friend-zoned.
True.
Men who claim to be feminists are manginas and white knights.
I've never heard... What the fuck is this? I've never heard of mangina. I mean, I've heard of stepbrothers, like Brendan's got a mangina, right? I've heard white knight before, for sure, but the fuck is a mangina? I've never heard that as... I mean, listen, sometimes I go on 4chan. I just go on there to look at porn, though, you know, because that's really all. I think that a lot of people moved somewhere else. I don't know, because I'm not in the know, and I don't want to be in the know, but yeah.
These men date feminists, they're probably being cucked or cheated on.
Damn,
because women
cucked.
like real men, not beta males.
True,
what starts out
dude.
as,
So
why
true.
won't girls sleep with me, an appeal to a wounded sense of entitlement, becomes, why can't women be controlled? And this appeal to male entitlement and feelings of inadequacy, the threat to their masculinity caused by lack of stable, well-paying jobs, women who are able to work and pay their way without the help of men.
I agree with that. I feel like... let me make sure I heard that right.
Of stable.
Yeah, I'm going to dropping out of the labor force because they're upset about their social status according to a new study. Interesting. Dropping out of the workforce is like a whole thing. But yeah, no, I think that part of the problem with that men are struggling with is because they want to be providers. And yeah, sure, part of that's social. I think a part of that is probably biological as well. I think there's a biological drive to be a provider. I think that it makes men frustrated with the system. And part of that is just like an overall system issue with the middle class.
Stable, well-paying jobs, women who are able to work and pay their way without the help of men.
Sure.
More women.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Women are coming to the table with more. They used to just come to the table with their vagina and their ability to take care of kids. Now they're also working, which means men have to come to the table with a little bit more than just a job. They have to be more emotionally intelligent. They have to be more like aware of themselves and other people around them, and they have to consider their partner more because their partner has the ability to leave in a greater capacity.
Who don't want to date men at all, declining birth rates, and a whole host of other phenomena that challenge the status quo.
Sure, I think the declining birth rates really just has to do with the fact that people in general like have less kids in countries where they have more financial opportunity, weirdly enough. You know, I don't know, and more education. I wonder if it's like an education thing. I mean, it's probably a mixture between like an education thing, being more aware of how much money you have to be able to have kids, the expensiveness how expensive it is to potentially have kids. You know, there's a lot of aspects to it, you know, which I know sounds conflicting. To be like, well, how come if they have more money, they think that it's just that they're more aware of their position because again they have more access to education and whatnot, and maybe part of it's because they just want to be more comfortable. Maybe part of it's because they're having kids later. and so they're more aware of it, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to give up my comfort life, blah blah blah, stuff like that.
And paint the world as scary and risky can lead to further radicalization. And so one thing leads to another, and these men go from anonymous online forum commenters to very public, very violent offenders very quickly. Take, for example, the 2014 mass shooting at Isla Vista, California, that ended in 22 injuries and 6 deaths before the shooter took his own life. In the hours leading up to the shooting, he had posted a 141-page diatribe in which he explained his hatred of women, fueled largely by an intense frustration over his own virginity. In the document, he described himself as the closest thing there is to a living god, saying he was the ideal magnificent gentleman and could not comprehend why women wouldn't want to have sex with him.
Jesus Christ, what a fucking psychopath. Yeah, I guess he's not particularly self-aware there, huh?
So his only choice was to exact revenge on the society that had denied him sex and love, declaring at the end, I am the true victim in all of this. I am the good guy. His attacks centered on a sorority house at a local college. The shooter has since become a martyr in the incel online communities. His 141-page document has since been adopted in various corners of the Manosphere, with excerpts used to justify further vitriol. 4 years after the Isla Vista shooting, a man posted a Facebook tribute to the shooter before driving his truck through a crowd in Toronto, injuring 15 people and killing 11. In light of these and numerous other attacks perpetrated by members of these online communities, in 2018, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks extremist groups, for the first time classified male supremacy as a distinct ideology of hate, noting that, like white supremacy, male supremacy is driven by fear and anger at the loss of white male status.
Dude, oh my God. Why white male status? Okay. Maybe. I feel like this isn't just a male issue. And I feel like, or excuse me, I feel like this is not just a white issue. You know, listen, I'm not trying to get all fucking whatever, but when I remember like when engaging in like the political discourse and whatnot, if you listen to black women, they'll talk about how there's like a particular struggle being a black woman as well as being a black trans person or black LGBTQ person. That tends to be a little bit more, sometimes a little worse than in other communities, right? Black communities tend to be have less money available to them, less education available to them. They tend to be much more religious. There tends to be an issue there. And religion comes with violence against women, LGBTQ people. There's nothing inherent about this. There's nothing inherent about black people that makes anybody more aggressive. But when you have communities that have been robbed of financially, robbed of their culture, robbed of their money, and they turn to religion a lot, robbed of education, they're going to be more angry, they're going to be more aggressive, and they're going to tend to take it out on like those, religious ways. More hatred to women and LGBTQ people. So I feel like constantly going white, 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 I don't know, to me is almost erasing the struggles of black, women as well as LGBTQ people in some capacity. So I don't know. I feel like the conversation could be a little bit more productive, but
The Anti-Defamation League's report on the connection between misogyny and radicalization paints a bleak picture. The underlying theme on incel message boards, readily found on 4chan and Reddit, is that the current
4chan?
sexual marketplace gives women too much freedom to choose their partners, which leaves some men being cheated out of their sexual birthright. Some incels believe that by denying them sex, women are committing reverse rape, which they argue is just as damaging and harmful as actual rape and should be included in the Me Too conversation. Indeed, the Me Too movement itself likely only exacerbated these feelings that men and man's rightful place at the top is being threatened at all sides. The irony in all of this, of course, is that these men who are experiencing social isolation because of the patriarchy, their feelings of inadequacy for not living up to the
I don't think everything has to be patriarchy. I think that a lot of people are experiencing social isolation because, one, men don't tend to be as social as women. But then also technology is keeping people and making them more lonely in general. I think that that's a big thing. I don't think it's... I understand patriarchy is a problem, but when everything is contributed to it, it's just so annoying. Technology would exist without a patriarchy and people would still be very lonely without it. So let's just... and buzzwords are nice, but let's talk about other factors as well.
ideal required by the patriarchy and their inability to connect with others because vulnerability isn't an option have led them to hate feminists. The very people who are trying to...
The funny part about it too is that if anybody watched this, they would go, "Oh, well, you just can't accept that it's patriarchy because you're a man, because of the patriarchy." And it's like, holy fuck! Like, I understand that patriarchy exists, but when you just buzzword everything with one very lazy response and you don't look at all the other aspects of it, people are like, especially young men, are not going to resonate with what you're saying, and then at this point you're just kind of like shouting into your echosphere and you're not doing anything productive.
End the patriarchy, and who often critique the gendered requirements for men because they hurt everyone, including men. And while hating women, they also share tips on how to confidently talk to women and how to lose weight and get muscular. In short, how to better fit into the patriarchy, which is the source of their despair.
Bro, are you listening to this? Come on. It's impossible to take this video seriously.
And they also share tips on how to confidently talk to women and how to lose weight and get muscular. In short, how to better fit into the patriarchy, which is the source of their despair. And
bro, that just comes off of what you're saying, is that trying to get fit and losing weight and trying to work on your health is just part of the patriarchy, and that it's bad to try to be fit. What the fuck are you talking about? This is so bad. This is what I'm talking about. Now, yeah, if guys try to lose weight and like get their health under control, it's fucking patriarchy. Nah, dude. Some people just want to feel good about themselves. It doesn't have to be super deep. Okay, whatever.
As men are drawn deeper into the dismal recesses of the manosphere, the message transforms from misogyny to misogyny with racial overtones. As one researcher put it, once you engage with the idea that a social justice warrior club and the feminist movement have increased the precarity of men, that moves over time into the increased precarity and endangerment of the West. And this slow change from manosphere as a personal philosophy to manosphere as a political ideology was documented by a research team who looked at hundreds of comments over years of posts on the Red Pill subreddit. The Red Pill refers to the movie The Matrix, in which the main character must choose between two pills, the blue pill and the red pill. The blue pill allows him to stay blind to the real way that society works, and the red pill allows him to see the true nature of society.
Of course, and then of course all the red pillars know that that movie was made for them to escape the blue pill world, because that makes a lot of sense for our Matrix to tell you that the Matrix exists. Whoa.
Something you can never unsee. The main character chooses the red pill, and in the manosphere, the idea of being red-pilled means you believe you finally see the world for what it is, a place where women have taken over, control men through sex, and men have become the hapless victims of feminism and modernity. Interestingly, that term red-pilled is also used by the alt-right in regard to their own flavor of worldview, which we'll get into. Researchers scoured the Red Pill subreddit and indexed the posts in order to analyze how it went from decidedly apolitical, where politics weren't discussed and in fact were frowned upon because it was a space for men to air their grievances and politics had no place, to decidedly political. Trump is our man, and it's our moral imperative to vote for him to save ourselves. It became less about the man as individual and more about men as a cohesive group that can affect political change. And this is directly tied to the election of Donald Trump. Trump said the things that these men felt they couldn't say out loud, except in the manosphere where they post violent diatribes against women and sometimes go out and actually kill women. Trump made violent misogynists feel seen, after years of feeling like they had to be underground and anonymous to voice some of the things Trump was willing to say out loud. And there's nothing like making a group of people feel seen.
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, I know a lot of people make the argument of like, oh, well, I don't think that Trump meant any negative by the things that he said or did. And let's just say that's true. The problem is the way that he talks sometimes will be seen as a dog whistle to people. Like we were saying before, everybody has different experiences with words. And so if you hear a word, if you hear, oh, you know, Mexico's sending all their bad people, some people might be here, oh, well, I guess he's just referring to the ones that are bad, like gang members. Other people might hear, oh, all of them are bad. As a president, it's your responsibility to not be a fucking idiot and to learn to communicate to everybody, not just the people, not just in a way that you feel like you should be listened to, because there's more people in the world than the people that, Jesus, because there's a lot more people in the world than you. There's way more people. So you need to be much more careful about it.
To get them to come over to your side. A 2021 study researched the migration patterns of commenters from Manosphere posts to alt-right posts on both Reddit and YouTube. The study concluded, our results suggest that there is a large overlap between the user bases of the alt-right and of the Manosphere, and that members of the Manosphere have a bigger chance to engage with far-right content than the control group.
Probably.
Previous research has found that content creators on YouTube who share the same platform and often engage in public debate with each other, bringing their communities together and engaging directly with them, can create radicalization pathways on YouTube. And studies have shown that members of other online...
Hold on, what?
Previous research has found that content creators on YouTube who share the same platform and often engage in public debate with each other, bringing their community engage with far-right content than the control group. Previous research has found that content creators on YouTube who share the same platform and often engage in public debate with each other, bringing their communities together and engaging directly with them, can create radicalization pathways.
Wow, I like previous. I don't know. That's the way that she phrased that. I believe she used the term like a previous fucking. I don't know.
Engage with far and of content than the control group.
Previous research. That sounds like dated research. What they're trying to suggest is that engaging with debate with some of these people is bad. I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think that that's kind of lazy. I think that you can engage with people that are more radicalized and potentially change their mind. If you don't think that, then what are you supposed to do, right? I mean, then you're just saying all hope is lost, so you might as well just give up and not try to de-radicalize people. I think that there can be a way. Do I think that most people should? Probably not, you know. I wouldn't even say that I should necessarily engage with somebody that's like super radical, but there are people that are intelligent enough to engage with that. I don't think it's bad to try to do that if you can do it effectively. So I think that you can de-radicalize some people, maybe not all people, but I think that you can do it for some. I think enough people to have an impact, but maybe I'm just too positive. I don't know.
Create radicalization pathways on YouTube. And studies have shown that members of other online communities do frequently migrate to channels espousing more extreme views.
That's
the 2021 study found that
whether it's like left or right views, people tend to like that emotionally charged and provocative place for whatever reason. I don't know. I guess people's jimmies jangled. Yeah.
the overlap between users in the Manosphere and the alt-right is substantial, and it's common for users who once commented exclusively in the Manosphere to eventually engage with alt-right content. And it makes sense, as I've said, that a person who has been radicalized to think women are the enemy and I am the victim and women should be put in their place would also be susceptible to further radicalization. Indeed, reports have shown that alt-right leaders do active recruitment in the Manosphere because of this very premise, with misogyny the handy common denominator that serves as a useful outreach mechanism. This is in part because misogyny is one of the most acceptable parts of the alt-right worldview. For example, while offensive, it is still far less inflammatory to say that men are smarter than women than it is to say that white people are smarter than black people.
Yeah, sure, that's true. It's like the Overton window of bigotry. I think that's why we're seeing a lot more bigotry towards LGBTQ people too, more so I think than any other group, frankly. And it's because it's not okay to be racist anymore for the most part. And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. You know, you shouldn't be racist. But because of that, now the shift focuses on to like, who else can we hate? Because I think a lot of this is about hating people, not about having anything intelligent to say.
The first one could be openly said on Fox News with little blowback. The second is often...
Was it? What do you... Wait.
People. The worry to say that men are smarter than women than it is to say that white people are smarter than black people. The first one could be openly said on Fox News with little blowback.
What the fuck are you talking about?
The second is often...
I'm not defending our Fox News, but they said the first one was hearing it on Fox News with little blowback, and then you cut to a picture of Tucker Carlson, who was fired from Fox News by the time he had this conversation with Andrew Tate, having a conversation where he said that. But what the fuck are you talking about? I'm not defending Fox News. I just don't understand. I just feel like that's not Fox News. You should just be this weirdly inaccurate.
Implied on Fox News, but never said out loud. So they can get their toe in the door by saying the misogynistic things casually, and then slowly weaving in the things that can no longer be said out loud because society generally really frowns on eugenics these days. And then further narratives can be woven in to help explain real-world phenomena in a way that fits in with a certain worldview. Birth rates are falling.
True.
Women who reach higher education levels do tend to have fewer children. Men can no longer earn a wage that supports a family of 4. Working women have independence and are no longer dependent on men. Women can control their fertility and bank accounts now, so they no longer have to be subservient to men, and their lives are no longer dictated by family or the church. The provided explanations that feminism has ruined society and women are fighting to oppress men at every level of society and government can quickly turn into a full-fledged conspiracy theory, similar to the kind of anti-Semitic QAnon conspiracies that have flourished since Trump's election. When you believe that women are systematically oppressing men and there's a vast cover-up to the point that you need to be red-pilled to see it, you're much more likely to believe there's also a cabal of elites and Jews running the world's economy and preying on children.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that is a pretty typical talking point from all the Manosphere shit that I've seen. So, sure.
F. Roger Devlin is an example of where these two worlds intertwine and then are given further legitimacy by people like him who are pseudo-academics with published books and therefore have an air of authority that bigots and extremists can then point to justify their ideology. F. Roger Devlin is a white nationalist who has argued that women's liberation has hurt white men's ability to procreate because these women...
I mean, it probably has. It's just not a negative thing. It's given women more selective dating protocols. Nothing wrong with that.
And go off and get degrees and focus on their careers and are therefore less likely to get married and have children to perpetuate the white race. Therefore, feminism and self-actualized women
that's fucking crazy.
Threaten the existence of the white race, which has upset the natural order of things. And the number of white supremacists who have been charged with or advocate an explicit favor for domestic violence is staggering. And
yeah, it is. I really just wish that this video is a little bit more inclusive of I don't know. I feel like it's not really talking about some of the struggles in black communities and stuff for black women, but you know what? I'm too much of a cuck liberal.
In 2017, the white supremacist group Vanguard America promoted their new women's division, saying, "The woman has her own battlefield. With every child that she brings into the world, she fights her battle for the nation. Strong nations grow from strong families." And in alt-right spaces, women who are friends with or date non-white men are considered race traitors who are damaged and generally useless. The common through line in the manosphere and alt-right spaces is the desire to control women and the feeling of entitlement, that these men had a birthright that was taken from them. Certain jobs, racial or socioeconomic status, sex, they deserve it all simply because they exist, because that's the natural order of things. And all these groups within the manosphere and the alt-right have been emboldened by the Trump presidency. They're validated and empowered by seeing themselves represented in the White House. Sounds nice. I've never experienced
the White House. Bro, come on. We need like we need a black house, all right? We need a painted black just to rep the homies.
Experience that. While misogynists in the manosphere have been migrating to alt-right corners of the internet for a while, it turns out that Trump was the ultimate uniter of these two groups, and the ultimate harbinger that brought them from dark, anonymous online communities and out onto the public streets. We saw this at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017, where a group of mostly angry young white men felt emboldened enough to shout, "The Jews will not replace us," en masse in public. And we saw it on January 6th, when groups of mostly angry white men stormed the Capitol building, feeling they had personally been attacked because the man who represented them, both politically but also personally, wasn't given back the presidency. Numerous of the men in the crowd that day have been charged with domestic assault or intimate partner violence. Based on what we've discussed in this video, that a violent insurrectionist would also exhibit violence towards women should come as no surprise. There's a lot of suggested band-aid solutions for these problems, such as greater enforcement of censorship in online spaces like Reddit.
I mean, I think a big part of it is maybe, you know, fathers can stay with their kids. I don't know. Yeah, man. I mean, your best bet is to broadly fix some of the other issues. If people had more money, they wouldn't be so angry. I know that sounds like a cheap solution, but it really is a big one. People need more things to do. We saw during COVID when people were home, there was a rise in domestic abuse. People need more access to money because you're going to see, I would argue, less abuse with more money. I'm not trying to be, it's not to be sympathetic to people who are abusive, but the reality is men manifest their anger, or their anger is manifested through violence. their emotions are manifested usually through some kind of a violence where women are different. And so when men are upset, they take it out more on people. It's not good. You obviously need to teach emotional regulation at the same time. But then also, again, the violence aspect is, again, the financial aspect, providing people the ability to live comfortably is going to reduce these issues, of course.
Or teaching law enforcement how to better handle online harassment and abuse before it becomes physical. And those are important, but they don't get at the underlying problem. Men are not okay. Like, I know it's a fun meme to throw around, like, are men okay? But truly, they are not okay. Check on the men in your life. Based on the stats that YouTube shows me, I know that 75% of you watching are men. Are y'all okay? Check in with each other. Tell your buds that you love them.
I wonder if that's true. That's interesting.
Hi there,
Get a
my name's
therapist, and then tell everyone that you got
I wouldn't have expected 75% of her audience to be men, but hey, maybe I'm just a fucking big idiot.
a therapist so that it becomes more normalized for men to get therapists and talk about therapy. Be vulnerable with the boys. Ask them how their hearts feel. Ask them what pain they feel in their souls. Okay, no, but seriously, it's
what
really
pain
not
do you
hard
feel in your
to
balls?
text a friend and say, hey, how are you doing? How do you feel about your job or your kids or your marriage or your life? What are you working towards?
I'm hungry.
Be in community with each other. Reach out, especially to the young men in your life. They're at a point where they likely feel really insecure and unsure of themselves. Show them what it's like to exist as a well-adjusted man who can speak about his feelings and doesn't fucking hate women. See if you can become
yeah, that's a good advice.
a mentor to someone in your community, either professionally.
Hey guys in the chat, how are you guys feeling about your life? I'm feeling pretty good. I'm a little hungry. That's pretty much it.
Or through your alma mater or something.
That's all it is,
Statistically,
dude.
15%
Oh,
of
hey,
you
John.
have no
How are you
close
feeling?
friends. And that's not
Damn.
necessarily your fault. It's really fucking
I
hard
got
to
my wife, dude. That's the only friend I need. My wife and my WoW account.
exist in this world. I get it. Try taking classes or joining a group based around a hobby you have.
Try
or
jerking.
pick
Try jerking off. Try jerking off.
up a hobby you think might be
Try jerking off to guys. This way you don't disrespect women so much,
interesting, so that you have a reason to get out of the house and meet people. Yeah, it's gonna be awkward. All of this, the meeting new people, the small talk, the reaching out to your pal to see how his heart feels, but it's not gonna kill you. The loneliness might though. And if it doesn't kill you, it might kill me or other women in your life. So maybe do it anyway. If you liked this video, you might also like my video about why conservatives are obsessed with voter fraud.
Okay. Well, they're obsessed with conspiracy. Okay, cool. Interesting video. That's all I really have to say.